What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to your channel. Before we jump into today's video, which is bound to be a fun one, as you guys can tell by the title, we actually have a sponsor for today's video, and that is going to be Factor Meals. Now, if you guys want to head over to factor75.com, or you can click the link in the description, you can use code Octane50, and you actually get 50% off of your first box. If you guys mostly hang out on the YouTube side of things, as opposed to being in my streams or over on Twitch, I have been going to the gym a lot more recently. I've been meal prepping and going through that whole hassle. So naturally, Factor seemed like one of the easier things for me to provide you guys. Now, when I'm streaming or making content and things like that, it's a lot easier for me to naturally order out things like Chick-fil-A, Chipotle, all these kinds of things, as opposed to eating anything nutritious or healthy whatsoever. So like I said, when I'm streaming, it's a lot easier for me to go into the kitchen, heat up some meal prep, and bring it back and not feel like crap for the rest of my stream. And that is something that Factor does super well. All of Factor's meals are dietitian approved. Like I said, I've been going to the gym a lot more recently, so macros is something that I'm starting to worry about just a little bit. So all of their meals are dietitian approved, and it pretty much just takes the hassle out of doing dishes, cooking, pretty much eliminates all of the time that you would otherwise need to meal prep. It's all done for you. Pretty much all you have to do is pop them in the microwave for about 1.5 to 2 minutes, and you're done. That's essentially it. So again, if you guys would like to use code Octane50 at checkout on factor75.com, you get 50% off of your first box, or you can click the link in the description below. Now on to today's video. Alright guys, for today's video, we are discussing my very early top 5 players moving into Modern Warfare 3, who to look out for. I threw some honorable mentions in here as well, because it's very hard to pick 5 people when there's just a league full of talent, -1. Obvious disclaimer, this is entirely opinionated. If you guys disagree with me, feel free to flame me in the comments. Whatever you want to do, I'm completely okay with. So starting out with the honorable mentions, and then I don't think these are going to be ranked, the 1 through 5 or anything like that. I think that these are just players to look out for. I'm not going to rank them. I don't think there's really a point to rank the players. So a couple honorable mentions before we actually jump into the list. We're going to start off the list with Bruce Optic Dashy. Now, Bruce, as you guys have probably seen the clips going around throughout the early offseason, right when I retired, I had a couple of takes about the Optic roster, and then obviously with their changes with Kenny and Pred. I talked about Bruce a little bit and kind of the role that he was trying to fill last season and how he had started to shift his playstyle a little bit away from the quintessential kill whore role and title that he was labeled with for the majority of his career, rightfully so, because when you have a shot as good as Dashy's, you really don't want to be the person that's filling lanes and getting in hill and doing these things. You want to be able to put that talent on display, and that is a role that I think someone like Dan Ghosty last year and someone like Ken moving forward in Modern Warfare 3 is really going to help out with. But I want to give an honorable mention to Bruce because he started to switch his playstyle a lot last year to a more team-oriented, objective-based player. He took a hit in the KD department, but I think that he saw the success when he was making those self-sacrifices in terms of KD, personal accolade, you know, just how the fans perceive you, and you start to play a little bit more for the win. I definitely noticed that in game last year. So I wanted to throw Bruce on this list because I think going into Modern Warfare 3, I think he's really built himself a phenomenal foundation to build upon what he started last year. Number 2, I am going to go Simp from Atlanta FaZe for essentially the exact same reason. Now, over the offseason, FaZe picked up Draza in place of Cellium to move Cell to a flex role. They obviously dropped Slasher from the main AR role, and that was the thing that FaZe needed to do. They needed to put Cell on a main, and they needed to find a true flex. Now, the issue with Simp and last season was that you kind of saw the exact same thing I was talking about with Dashy, where he took on pretty much every single objective role for FaZe, because you had Abezy playing as Abezy does at just an unreal pace, getting just the most ridiculous 2 pieces in the world and being probably the best search and destroy player in the game. When you have Tyler playing at that level, someone needs to make sacrifices on the team, and it wasn't going to be Cell last year, and Austin was trying to do it. And I think that Simp really stepped into his own. He was like number 2 in control caps, number 1 in bomb plants. Like, he really took the burden of the objective off of the rest of his teammates. So I'm going to put him on the honorable mentions strictly because I really respect the playstyle switches. And like, the reason that I'm putting these players on my lists isn't necessarily just because of how skilled they are. I think it's what they can bring to a team and what they can enable their teammates to do. So for that reason, I'm going to put Simp in here as well. I don't know where that playstyle trend is going to go in Modern Warfare 3 because they picked up Draws, who I don't think is super objective oriented. He hopped in hill from time to time last year, but he was always telling me to bump him. So I think that Simp is probably going to have to bear a little bit of that burden going into Modern Warfare 3, and I'm excited to see the playstyle shift from being a superstar that he was in 2019 Black Ops 4, his rookie season, to now being an enabler of his teammates. So I'm happy to see his and Dashy's evolving as a player. Now I have 2 more on the list. The next up is going to be Kismet. Now I have said this time and time again, I think Kismet is probably, barring Dylan Envoy, I think the best superstar SMG complement in the league. I think Kiz is an absolutely incredible enabler of his teammates. I think that, barring again maybe Dylan Envoy, because Dill I think is probably the most malleable sub in the league, meaning he can do anything. He can entry frag, he can be that route guy, phenomenal search and destroy, really good comms, he'll get in the hill if you need him to. There's very few subs that can maneuver across multiple dimensions of the submachine gun role. Most of the time your sub players pick a niche and kind of stay in that lane for the most part. So that's why I have huge respect for Kiz as well as Envoy, because they are essentially kind of the same player. Both are phenomenal S&D minds. Kiz is much more of a leader, I think. I noticed in their listen-ins over the Modern Warfare 2 season, Kiz was super vocal. I loved that, the way that he kind of took what Scrappy was saying at COD Champs and just made it his own and came out and legitimately obliterated them in grand finals. Kiz just seems like the player that you really don't want to light a fire under, and I respect the way that he plays COD because he understands the win conditions of his teams. And the last couple seasons, that has been Hydra. He has literally been the best player in the game. So I want to give my props to Kismet. I don't think that people are writing him off necessarily, but I don't think that people are talking about him nearly enough, because that guy went from in the league on Vegas to challengers to winning COD champs. So shout out to Kiz, guys, gross. And then last but not least on the list, we have little bias here. I'm going to go Ken, also from Optic. My philosophy, and the majority of the fans' philosophy, is that you want Ken on the gun that is going to give you the highest impact, and being the flex allows you to do whatever you want. We had him on a main sub for our years on LAT, and that is just because Ken was super high impact on a sub. Comms were incredible, which is where, you know, I don't have to get in the whole role swap situation, but you guys know the backstory behind that. So putting Ken in an area to, one, enable his teammates super well, which he has said time and time again, he's trying to come into this. He really is joining this Optic roster to facilitate a game plan, move pieces around the map, and be the person that is going to take charge in moments of disarray, if you will. So I have a ton of respect for Ken for bearing the burden of that. Kind of the theme of my honorable mentions is that all of these players are enablers. Obviously, we'll get into my top 5 as well, but I have a bunch of respect because a lot of these things aren't shown on a scoreboard. And I wanted to just give props to these players going into Modern Warfare 3, because these are the people that are going to win and lose you championships. Obviously, there's going to be, you know, your Hydras of the world who are going to go out and drop like 1.3s, but these are the reason that those players are able to drop 1.3s. So I'm looking forward to Ken, seeing what he can do with a brand new Optic roster, ton of slaying ability, and I want to see how he slots into that IGL kind of facilitator role for next season. Alrighty, guys, on to my top 5 players for Modern Warfare 3. This list is not going to be actually numbered in any order. These are just 5 players that are 100% should be on everyone's radar. Number 1, I said his name 16 times already, but it's going to be Hydra, defending MVP, defending world champion, by far and away the best player last year. And I think that he has set the bar so high for himself that anything below an MVP caliber season would be a disappointment. This guy, since storming the scene in Cold War, has not only learned English and learned how to play competitive Call of Duty at the highest level, he has also earned the best accolade in competitive COD possible, getting season MVP as well as a COD champs ring in the same season. So I'm not quite sure how you encore that season, but, you know, shout out to Paco, because that guy's knowledge of the game, playing him and watching, is top tier. That guy's absolutely unbelievable with submachine gun. This is gas that you would normally give to an AR player. He's throwing up AR numbers on a submachine gun and doing it pretty much better than anyone else right now, barring a couple other players that are also on this list. But yeah, massive shout out to Paco. I absolutely cannot wait to see what he does moving into Modern Warfare 3. Also, guys, the reason that I'm not going to use like numbers or stats or anything like that is because I really don't, barring like a couple of things, maybe like around the objective and KD in some circumstances, I don't really like using numbers to kind of justify things, because numbers in Call of Duty can kind of create some shit narratives in my opinion. So I'm kind of going majority off of the eye test and me playing against all of these players. The things that I could see on the map, the impact that I feel when I was playing. Obviously numbers are kind of the thing that you guys have to go off of, which I 100% understand. But while I still can, I'm going to use what I can for the last COD season and kind of just give a hands-on approach, as opposed to be like, this guy's a 1.2, he's going to be gross. So moving on to number 2 on the list, and this is going to be Ernie Longneck Scrap, Mr. Toronto himself. Now, Scrap, coming off of his rookie season, obviously he's going to find his way onto the list. One of the, if not the flexes in the scene. He is an actual true flex, which I have the utmost respect for because there's not many of them in the CDL. And not only that, he was pretty much performing at an unbelievable level the entire season. He was the front runner for Rookie of the Year, only to be kind of maybe talked about with Dan Ghosty after he joined Optic, but I think Scrap pretty much always had that in the book with his event win at the Optic Major. I don't want to sit here and gas this guy because it's going to go insane, but Scrap's kind of shit on me for the entirety of Modern Warfare 2. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to see what he does in Modern Warfare 3, his sophomore season. He is an unbelievable talent. Guy shoots unbelievably straight. And the thing that I probably respect the most about Scrap is the pace that he plays at. He has that level of aggression that you really would find in like a main sub, but he does it on an AR, which I have the just utmost respect for yet again, because he kind of puts himself in shit situations sometimes, but he bails himself out with gun skills. So to be able to do something like that on a regular basis with the level of talent in the CDL is definitely impressive. So I'm excited to see what Scrap can do moving into Modern Warfare 3. The guy's going to be godlike. I don't want to sit here and gas him. Fuck that guy. Moving on to number 3, we have Sim's counterpart, Tyler Abezy, Chicken Little himself. Now, Abezy, again, is kind of a similar area as Hydra. The guy has set legitimately unbelievable records, and not only search and destroy, but just like the pace of which you can play the entry submachine gun role. That is something that is done very, very few times. Most of the time is kind of just cannon fodder for the baiting people behind you. But Tyler, not only entries, he gets you a 2-piece, and there are very, very, very few people in the league that can do that on a consistent basis. I'm thinking like Kleenex and Hydra, and like that's essentially it. Shotzi when he's frying, perhaps. But there's really not many subs that will literally fly through door bust, give you a 2-piece, and get the third guy weak. And Abezy definitely does that. He's been doing that since World War II when he had a Smurf in the World War II ranked ladder. So massive respect to Tyler. This is just something that you kind of expect season to season. The Terrors have been together for like 4 or 5 years, so this is nothing new. You guys are not surprised to find Abezy on this list whatsoever. This is just the norm that they have set. So now we wait for Atlanta FaZe to be good at Call of Duty and Modern Warfare 3, and we continue with our day. And another kind of side note about Abezy, which is kind of going to go back to my simp point in the honorable mention, is that I think his teammates do a phenomenal job of really allowing Tyler to flourish in any way that he wants to play COD. And I think Zach or Draws coming in with their offseason roster change is really just going to perpetuate the entire thing. I think Draws is an absolutely unbelievable search and destroy player. Obviously, I have hands-on experience with that. Tyler is probably the best search and destroy player in the league, barring maybe like Hydra and Draws. So having 2 of the top 3 search and destroy players on your team at one time, it's definitely going to allow Tyler to free flow even more than he was before. He led First Bloods by like 50% above number 2. So I think that team is going to be absolutely gross. Number 4, it has to be Pred. I mean, guys, like I'm not gonna not put Pred on here. And the reason I'm actually putting Pred on here isn't necessarily because he's gross, which I'm putting him on here because he finds himself in a situation that he was trying to put himself in for so many months. You guys obviously know all the Optic drama. I'm not getting into that. He tried to get on Optic for like 8 months. So the fact that AG is finally on Optic, he's finally in the situation that he's been searching for the last 8 months, like I said. I'm excited to see the mentality that he comes into Modern Warfare 3 with. I think that he's going to be very hungry because, again, he finds himself in the position that he wanted to be in. So that drive is naturally going to be there. He's already like a walking 1.2, 1.3. His sub duo with Shotzi, and he gets to play with one of the straightest shots of all time in Dashy, and he gets to play with potentially one of the best leaders that we've ever had because Ken definitely displays those attributes. I think that this is a best case scenario for Pred to just thrive. So Pred, prior to being on Optic, was literally just known for like empty 1.2s. If he wasn't doing that, then Seattle most of the time would lose, barring like a step up performance from someone like Sib. So I think that Pred having help, we'll just put it like that. I feel that. I'm excited to see where Pred's motivation is, how hard he's going to go, because again, this is the most favorable situation that he might be in for his entire career. Like, this is a roster that could very easily win multiple titles, if not champs. And last but not least, to round out our top 5, I'm going to put Cell on here. Now you guys know my opinion about Cell. I've said it time and time again. I think that there was a lot of situations that Cell would put his team in that were pretty unfavorable. His playstyle lent to a lot of mistakes and a lot of playing his life in situations where the better play would literally just be run at the guy and die. And I think that moving Cell onto a main AR was, again, the #1 thing that FaZe had to do over the last offseason. And the fact that they did that is going to put MC in a situation where he can make those kinds of plays and not have the downside that he would before, because prior to Draza joining the team, Cell was their flex. So they had Slasher and they had Arcides. And having essentially 2 main ARs on the same team created so many issues in 4v4 that I think that Cell's inflated numbers in Respawn specifically kind of it was kind of like a red flag to some fans. Cell was throwing up 1.3s and they were losing by like 190 points, 100 or 90 points, excuse me, in hardpoint. So that was a huge issue in FaZe's Respawn. Obviously, they're like the best search and destroy team of all time last year. Like they had a 16 or 17 game win streak. Like that was never in question. The whole time during the entire Modern Warfare 2 season was their hardpoint. And I think that MC not being the overarching issue, it was definitely an issue nonetheless. So I think Draza coming in fixes a lot of their pacing issues, and it allows MC to, again, play the way that he wanted to before, because Draza is definitely a little bit faster than Cell is. So I want to see how Cell acclimates to the new role, if he's going to help Simp out on the objective front, or if they're just going to like literally push Simp into the hill and control points and tell him to plant the bomb. I don't know how that's gonna I don't know how that's gonna work out, but I'm excited to see it nonetheless. So let me know y'all's top 5 down below. This is kind of a long-winded video, but you know, it's the off season. We got to fill some time somehow. But like I said, guys, let me know down below what your top 5 would be, if you agreed, disagreed, if you hate my list, if you respect it. What do you think? Thank you guys, as always, for watching, and have a fantastic rest of your day.